Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to Tuesday's first half kickoff edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion that is posted on Tuesdays and Thursdays on WeAreSC.com and features WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and historians. We first start off with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and then give you the latest USC Trojans football news. Let's first start off with Tuesday's panelists, a WeAreSC columnist who writes WeAreSC.com's The Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways. In addition to regular season football and practice reports, he also hosts his own podcast show entitled Locked On USC. Mr. Marc Kulkin, a former William Jewell College defensive back and WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular WeAreSC column Musings with Arledge, and now has his own weekly WeAreSC.com video show, Musings with Arledge, and is a graduate of the USC Law School, Mr. Chris Arledge. A former USC first-team all-conference linebacker and team captain for the 1975 Trojans, a WeAreSC columnist who writes defensively speaking after every USC game, Mr. Kevin Bruce. And a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Fridays, The Obvious and Not So Obvious, IMHO Sunday, and is an active member of the Football Writers Association of America, your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle. That's me, Greg Katz. Before we kick off this Tuesday's first half edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, here's the latest USC football news. The Trojans last Saturday earned another win number 7 at Arizona with a grinding 45-37 win over the Wildcats. The win was led by sophomore Caleb Williams, a quarterback who passed for 411 yards, 5 TDs. He was helped out by receivers Taj Washington and Kyle Ford, who led a great effort on the receiving end of it, and also by running back Travis Dye, who had 23 carries for 113 yards and 1 TD. Defensively, the Trojans also had a defensive effort from tackles Tuli Tuiapalutu, defensive end Nick Figueroa, and in the secondary by Mikhail Blackman and safety Bryson Shaw. Also, USC redshirt junior defensive back Bryson Shaw was named the Pac-12 Player of the Week this week for his performance in USC's 45-37 victory over Arizona. This Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. in the Coliseum, the number 9 USC Trojans, 5-1 in the Pac-12, 7-1 overall, and the Cal Bears will be at home in Los Angeles. The Trojans have been established as a 21.5 point favorite. By the way, the Trojans' homecoming game is Saturday against the Cal Bears. The game will be televised nationally on ESPN. Friends, WeAreSC's Inside the Trojans Huddle greatly appreciates your viewer and listenership. We encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the red subscriber and like buttons. It's greatly valued, and it is free. And as a courtesy reminder for those of you that are not currently a subscriber, member of WeAreSC.com, excuse me, there is a limited time promotion going on right now that for $10 you can access all the WeAreSC premium stories, analysis, and videos. The current new member deal gives you complete coverage throughout the season and all the way up to next season, the cycle, which ends on August 31st, 2023. You get it all for $10. All right, here we go. First quarter panel, we kick off the first half with a review and grading for the Trojans' 45-37 victory over Arizona. First, without giving any sort of grade, your overall thoughts on the game. Our leadoff hitter, as always, Marc Kulkin, your thoughts.
Offensively, I thought they were, fantastic. Defensively, A for effort. But overall, look, you go into a game like that when you're missing so many key components, and then you see some other strange stuff going on that you can't control. It's another road win, and that's what you want to take away from this. And again, when you have an offensive line that gets mishmashed together, they give up 0 sacks. You just want to get out of there with a win, and that's what they did, especially against a team you knew that they were going to put up yards and points. It was a little bit closer than they anticipated. Overall, I thought offensively, they did what they could, and they got it done. against it was Arizona's defense.
Okay, Kevin, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was consistent with what I thought. First of all, as I wrote in my column, that the 15-point spread was silly in the extreme. That was never going to be. That just wasn't going to happen. So it was, Arizona was going to play a tough game. They did. They played well. We had a lot of missing in action guys playing in new positions, doing the best they can with the situation, and did well. I mean, it was a grinded out kind of game. It's every down counted, every technique was used. We tried different adjustments, some of which worked, some of which not so much. The offense was Caleb and then everybody else, and thank God for Caleb and Travis Dye. I gotta tell you, and that's probably true for the entire season so far.
Chris?
Yeah, my feeling after all of that was relief. That's not a game you can afford to lose, right? I mean, if you lose that game, you really spoil what could be a very successful season. There were a bunch of guys missing. You're playing on the road, not a particular tough road venue, I suspect, but you're playing on the road, and you get the win. It wasn't satisfying to me in many respects. It's not one of those games that I'm going to be talking about with people 5, 10, 15 years from now, but it's a W. It keeps the train on the tracks. So I'll take it.
Yeah, and I agree. It keeps the train on the tracks. The offense was fine for the most part. Of course, the offense revolves around Caleb, and defensively, man, they had a lot of issues going on. And I think that Alex Grinch tried everything he could to keep it in line. The linebacker situation is difficult at this point. It is what it is. We've kind of got before the season. We did say there could be a lot of high-scoring games, and this was one of them. And going along with what you guys said, they got out with the win. So with that, let's move on now to specific grades for each individual offensive unit and a brief comment. Mark, your thoughts on what grades you gave Caleb Williams?
How do you go anywhere other than an A? I mean, he had career high 411 yards, 5 touchdown passes, should have had 6. Just fantastic. And he was doing this behind a makeshift offensive line where you had players missing and players playing out of position, at least as far as this season is concerned. 2 of his starting wide receivers were out of the game, and it was almost seamless, like he didn't miss a beat. So as far as Caleb is concerned, an A.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get us your running backs, wide receiver, and offensive line grades.
So running backs, B+. I just wish they would have used them more. I mean, especially considering all the circumstances, you want to shorten the game. You just want to get out there with a win. They could have had 200 yards on the ground by halftime had they went with that type of game plan. Whatever reason, the passing game was working very successfully. You go with that as well, I suppose. Wide receivers, you got to go in A. Those guys stepped up. I mean, you don't have Mario Williams, you don't have Jordan Addison, and here you get 2 guys with their first 100-yard games. Kyle Ford, who I think everybody knows his history. He has 2 touchdowns. Taj Washington, 100 yards plus a couple of touchdowns. That's what you want from your so-called backups, and they stepped up. Moving on to, oh, by the way, I know you'll appreciate this, Chris. Mario Williams, he loved the towel waiver role. When they took his helmet away, he came back with in his black hoodie, and he grabbed the towel and he was on the sideline doing it up. So I'm not quite sure what his injury was, because he was up and down, jumping up and down like he wasn't injured at all. So maybe we'll find out what his day-to-day injury is tomorrow at practice. Let's see. The offensive line, I'm going to give those guys an A. No sacks. The offense only had 2 penalties, and one was a false start, one by Dietich, The other was a holding by the freshman Mason Murphy, who started at right tackle the whole game. And from what I'm told, that holding really wasn't a hold. I haven't seen a replay yet, so you guys can disagree. If it was a good hold, great. But to play right tackle, first game starting, and play as well as he did, everybody else out of position, Jonah Monheim playing right guard, Justin moving over to left guard because Andrew Voorhees was out of the game. And then you have Bobby Haskin having to leave at halftime. Cortland Ford steps in and they start running the ball, and they start running the ball very effectively. So I got to go with an A with the offensive line right there. I don't think you can grade them any lower.
Well, we'll find out. Kevin, your thoughts on quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight ends, and offensive line?
Yeah, the quarterback play was outstanding. In particular, given the people that were out of position, new positions, having to be directed to make sure their assignments, they knew their assignments and were sound in their calls. So with respect to the quarterback play, that's as good as you're going to see in a situation like that. And just getting out of that game in one piece with a win, I'm good. I'm totally good with that. I think clearly U of A was underrated by others, not by people on this Zoom call, but others. And you know, it ended up with a happy ending, and it could have gone very much the other direction, frankly, without the play of, in particular, Caleb Williams, but also as pointed out, the offensive line was played very well, in particular, given that guys were out of position in new positions to a large extent, to some extent. And that was helpful, that they were able to step up and move to different positions and really execute and provide adequate protection to Caleb. There's a few little things I would nip at a little bit in terms of improvement, but I'll leave that for the coaching staff to do.
Kev, what grade did you give the running backs?
Running back Travis Dye, he gets an A. He just shows up. He gets an A in my book. So,
wide receivers, tight ends.
Yeah, wide receiver play was inspired, given that very few knew they were going to be playing that day in the way that they were. So I like what I saw. Certainly, you know, moving up the ranks there, if you will, was important. And you know, giving Caleb you know, enough of a target so he could hit some guys when things were breaking down, or he was breaking things down for U of A defense, by the way. So
the grade you gave was for the wide receivers
B plus, fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Offensive line.
I'll give them an A.
Okay. Chris, what did you think?
Caleb Williams has to get an A. The crazy thing about Caleb Williams is that every week I'm giving him an A, and I realize that he's at about 60 or 70% of what he's going to be by the time he's done at USC. I mean, he is so immensely talented. And when I say immensely talented, I mean, I'm talking about NFL overall #1 pick talent. I mean, with the arm strength, the ability to move. I mean, it is that play where he was moving to his left and threw that dart into the end zone that bounced off Brendan Rice's chest. That's a throw that Patrick Mahomes could make, and Aaron Rodgers can make, and maybe a couple of other guys on Sundays can make. He's an unbelievable talent. I would like to see him take off more to pick up first downs.
Exactly.
He also is, because he's successful at it, a very aggressive quarterback who likes to throw low percentage plays downfield because he wants to make big plays. And sometimes to the detriment of the drive, right? We lose out on points and drives because he is willing to throw a fade when he should throw to a guy underneath and pick up 9 yards and a first down. All right. Those are things that I think he can improve on. But how are you going to nitpick 5 touchdowns, no picks, 411 yards, and terrorizing people with your legs? How are you going to nitpick a touchdown to interception ratio of 24-1? I mean, he's extraordinary, and he's going to get better. Running backs, I agree with Kevin. I'm going to give Travis Dye an A every time I see him. And we had a nice catch for Ray League Brown for a touchdown early in the game. Austin Jones had a play or two. I would have liked to, like Mark said, I would have liked to have seen the running backs get more involved early. I was a little bit surprised. There were a lot of 6-man boxes where USC was throwing the ball. And that Arizona defense, Arizona has some strengths. Their defense is not good. They're bad against the pass, they're bad against the run. And I just think we play behind the sticks sometimes because instead of running the ball, we decide to throw it, and then we throw a low percentage ball downfield. And now it's 2nd and 10, and we're playing behind the sticks. I would like to see us give the ball to Travis Dye on first down a lot more and have 2nd and 3, and then we can do whatever we want. But Lincoln Riley knows more about offense than I'll ever know, so maybe he had a good reason for that. Wide receivers and tight ends, there were a couple of drops. I'm going to give those guys an A-, but the truth is they played extraordinarily well considering a lot of those guys had very little experience. That just shows how deep the wide receiver core is, because those guys, Kyle Ford could play. Michael Jackson could play. These guys can do some things, and they're only scratching their potential. Offensive line, yeah, look, these guys were shuffled all over the place. It wasn't a good Arizona front. It wasn't. But they played well. They opened up holes on the ground. They gave time. Again, 45 points, 611 yards, 8.5 yards per play. Who am I going to complain about?
Yeah, I love the 4th and 1, by the way, which was stick it in your face.
Yeah, agreed. The offense left some points on the board, right? Or on the field. They did.
Yeah.
Both because of special teams miscues and because there were occasions where I think we tried a low percentage play and didn't keep a drive alive. So they could have easily scored in the 50s, but again, 611 yards, 45 points. I'm not going to complain about that. That would be silly.
All right, and I will top it off. Quarterback gets an A for me. Running back grade was an A-. I would have liked to have seen more running, just a little bit. Wide receivers, tight ends, A. I don't want to leave out the tight ends because even if they weren't catching passes, they were blocking, and I like that. Offensive line, I think in the long run, it's not the way you really want to do it, but the fact is they had to do it. Moving Monheim over to right guard. And doing some of that stuff and moving Dedich to left guard. In the long run, that will help not only this year, but next year's team as well. So I gave them an A-. Very quickly, the overall letter grade, no explanation needed. I'll start off on this one. I gave them an A. Mark?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, your grade overall for the.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I gave that at the very top. A for the offense.
Okay. Kevin?
Same. We're not green on the curve either, so I'll give it an
Okay, Chris?
How can I argue with that?
There you go, straight A's. Okay, now let's turn to the defense, give out specific grades for each individual defensive unit and a brief comment. Mark, start off. Again, the categories are defensive line, rush ends grade, linebackers grade, secondary grade. Let's start off there. So Mark, go ahead and give us your grades with some explanations, please.
Yeah. So the defensive line, rush ends, you don't see a lot of productivity when you look at the stat line. Part of that is because Jaden DeLaura, the Arizona quarterback, number 1, is very mobile. 2, gets rid of the ball very quickly. So it's hard to get to that type of quarterback. And he makes it difficult. So I'm being gratuitous here. I'm giving them a B- again, because I think Nick Figueroa at that rush end
Mark,
position,
are we losing you? All right, Kevin, why don't you pick it up?
Yeah, let me just pick up where I think where Mark is going.
Backward bronze.
And my own personal point of view is that I thought the defense played reasonably well. It was scratchy, gritty, wasn't always pretty. We did see the revenge of the Tampa 2, by the way. I don't know if anybody noticed that one, but we had Thule at middle linebacker, and they were actually dropped him into a Tampa 2 look with 2 high safeties, which was Grinch. But look, he's pulling everything out of the bag at that point, and able to put some pressure on a very elusive quarterback, very good quarterback, by the way, and who did a nice job. I thought did a very, very nice job throughout the course of the game against us. Just the whole line of scrimmage activity was kind of a plus and minus. Again, a bit scratchy at times, choppy as I call it as well, but adequate. Okay, so when you're on the road and you come out with a win and you say we were adequate, you know what? There's worse things that have happened, and that's okay. The team is getting better, which is what I'm looking for, and I key in on that in my articles because it's what I'm really looking for is improvement of the team in certain key areas and collectively, and I'm seeing that, and I like what I see. I like the energy that's put forward. I do like not everything's perfect, of course it isn't. I mean, we know that. But it's good enough, and it needs to improve week to week as we climb the mountain, if you will, to run the table. And we really do need to run. We should run the table. It's not going to be easy. Anybody who thinks that has never tried to run the table before. Okay, so there you go.
Evan, what grades? We'll get to Mark here back. So he's got his microphone fixed up there. What grade did you give the linebackers and secondary?
Linebackers were a B. Secondary, I gave I'll give that a B too. Frankly, they're similar. There was a nice, Bryson Shaw did a heck of a job, and to get the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week, that's pretty impressive. I think that's what the call out was. And that's pretty darn impressive. Now, look, a guy coming from Ohio State, a former starter, he's bringing an A game. Just get him on the field somehow. And I'm glad we got him on the field. I have to tell you that. It's tough because the other guys are good too.
All right, let's go back to Mark. You want to fill us in on your picks once again? What grades you gave all 3?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sounds good.
That was odd. All right. So I think I was at the Russian. There's not a lot of stats to back it up, but I'm going to give them a B-. Nick Figueroa, he had the sack. It was big at the time until the next play happened. But when you're going up, and Kevin did a great job of pretty much making my points with it, so I won't belabor it too long. When you're playing against that type of quarterback, the defensive line is going to have a tough time making plays in the backfield, getting to the quarterback. They could have been better against the run, but that DJ Williams is a pretty big, strong runner. Linebackers, man, I'm just going to be really, I guess, pragmatic about this. A for effort, but based on, if you're giving it on productivity, there wasn't a lot there, but you can only play the players you have. And when you don't have the speed at linebacker to play against a team offensively that has speed, both vertically as well as horizontally, that's going to be difficult for the linebackers. But again, based on who was available and who wasn't, that's why I'm giving them that grade. Secondary.
Yeah, I was just going to say very quickly that the play of Shane Lee is really getting obscured here. Not with this group, but in general. I would hate to be a running back and get hit by Shane Lee. Just got to tell you, he hurts people, and it's a good thing. And his ability to play that middle linebacker. It's really more middle than Mike. I mean, technically it's Mike, but whatever. It's more, it's middle linebacker, maybe throwback old style, whatever, but he puts a serious hurt on people. And I keep hearing, and it's annoying the heck out of me that, oh my gosh, yeah, put the running back on Shane Lee and they'll be able to outrun him and they can throw the ball. Well, hell, no kidding. Who can't? The problem is you better make darn sure you complete the pass or he's going to kill somebody. So, hats off to him. Nice job. Not a lot of love. So I'm giving him some.
No, I would never disagree with that one, Kevin. He is his strength is run support. And if you want to call it his weakness, it's going to be in coverage. But, most linebackers struggle in coverage, particularly in today's offensive schemes. It's just a mismatch from the play call. So that's why I was generous with my linebacker grade. And plus, he's still playing with only one hand. So he had the other sack. And when he does get a hold of you because of his strength, he's just going to ragdoll you to the ground. Secondary grade, look, I'm not sure where to go with this. Those wide receivers for Arizona, they're good. I mean, they were making some tough one-handed grabs. I'm going to give them a B. Maybe I could be a little harsher on it. But those guys are going to have an opportunity to play on Sunday. T-Mac, if he starts to fall in love with the game, his skills are off the charts. And then as far as Singer and Cowling was the other one, they were having their way with the USC secondary. But again, Bryson Shaw, he stepped up at the right time, opportunistic, whatever you want to call it. He said that during the week, Grinch told him to look for a certain play. He saw the formation, he read the play, he was in position to make the interception. And that was a big time interception because it stemmed the tide. So that's where I'm going with my grade with the secondary. Then as far as overall, are we holding off on that one right now, Greg?
All right. I'm sorry, Mark, did you give a particular letter grade for the secondary? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with a B.
Okay.
Stick with a B.
Chris?
I don't know. I'm torn here, Greg. I mean, that's a lot of B's from my two friends that preceded me for a unit that gave up 560 something yards, 37 points, and almost 8 yards of play. Here's the thing. Arizona's a lousy defensive team, but they are not a lousy offensive team. Jaden DeLora can really play. I mean, really play. And those receivers are very good. So, I mean, they're going to give people some problems. The issue I have with USC right now is that they rely very heavily on the big play to get stops. And lately, there haven't been very many of those big plays. Obviously, we got the big pick. Almost had another one in the end zone where our guys collided. At least this week, got a couple of sacks. But, Arizona more or less had their way with USC. And so I can't give B's across the board giving up those types of numbers. I just can't. That being said, look, we knew that USC, especially in the front seven, wasn't very deep this year. And they lose their top two rush-ins. Who knows, when Foreman will come back or what he'll do when he does. You lose your best linebacker, and frankly, probably your best defensive player. And so if you're going up against a pretty good offense on the road and you start off where you don't have a lot of depth and then you lose guys like that, you're probably going to expect some struggles. I would have liked to have seen better tackling. I think there were a lot of missed tackles that were unfortunate. So I'm not going to give B's. I'm going to give C's all the way down the line because I just didn't see USC winning a lot of battles against Arizona's offense. And as good as Arizona's offense is, I think the expectations for USC should be that they're going to get their share of wins. And there just weren't a lot, especially in that second half. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to say that respectfully, the ability to handle the third downs and fourth down conversion attempts by U of A, I think kind of nudges it into a little higher, grading, if you will. They did a pretty good job when it was time to dig in and macho it up a little bit. That said, yeah, there were missed tackles. There was a lot of bad run fits out there, only because they were bad run fits, guys that weren't quite sure where to be, and then maybe they thought, no, they went to where they thought they were supposed to be, which probably turned out to be not exactly correct. That gets corrected. Anyway, so that's why I leaned a little higher on the grade side of things. Against a different team, might have a different point of view, but we all agree that, look, U of A, as an offense goes, that's other than UCLA, I'm not sure we're going to see a better offense this season.
Yeah,
I don't think we're going to. I mean, that quarterback, he's a sophomore too. I mean, that kid. I don't know that he's Caleb Williams, but I don't know that he's that far away. I mean, he's doing a lot of the same things, right? I mean, even when we have clean rushers, they can't bring the guy down. He's running around. He's making good throws. He has a wide receiving core that was making a lot of really good catches. I mean, they're good. Arizona's offense was 7 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down conversions.
Yep.
That's not great defense. Now, to be fair, USC was 13 of 19 on 3rd and 4th down conversions. That's offensive dominance. So I'm just saying, I get it. I think if you look personnel, I'm not convinced that USC's defense, the people they had on the field Saturday night, are better personnel-wise than who Arizona's offense had on the field. I'm not sure they are. I didn't see a lot of USC. I didn't see a lot of wins for USC, particularly in a second half where Arizona scored 24 points. 24 points is too many to give up and still get high grades. So I'm not gonna give B's. I'm gonna give C's all the way down the line. And I'm gonna pray that Eric Gentry gets healthy soon, because he is a difference maker and would change a lot of that. Oh, by the way, on the linebacker play, before we get too far off of that, Nomura is not athletic enough to handle a team like Arizona. He's not. I think against a team like Notre Dame, though, I actually think he'd be all right. That guy will come up and hit you. And a linebacking core of Lee and Nomura against the Irish who want to pound the ball between the tackles, I think we could live with that. But against UCLA, man, we need Eric Gentry back, and we need him back in a hurry.
Well, two things real quick, Chris, would it change your opinion if you were told that they had 8 pass breakups?
I mean, 8 pass breakups is a good number.
Considering everything you said.
Yeah, I mean, the kid had 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaged almost 9 yards per attempt. I mean,
I know. I agree. It's hard. I hear you.
I understand. You're going up against a good offense and good wide receivers. You're on the road, and you have some serious injury issues, particularly with your best defensive player. I get it. That's why I said I felt relief. We got out of it with the win. Great. But I'm not going to give high scores. I'm not going to give high scores when you're giving up almost 8 yards of play for the game and 37 points. I'm just not.
Totally get it. And as far as Eric Gentry, man, if the phrase "he has a hitch in his giddy up" was ever a perfect way to describe the way he's walking, he looks like he has Desmond Reed drop foot right now. I mean, it looks weird when he walks.
Oh.
So that's what people get to see him on the sideline at the game.
Does anybody know
anything out there that nobody else saw? I'm sorry?
Does anybody know a faith healer? We can get Eric Gentry in front of him. We need somebody to pray over this kid in a hurry, because we need that guy back. I mean, it makes a huge difference having his length and athleticism out there.
Well, I'm willing to sacrifice numbers against Cal and Colorado to get him back healthy for UCLA and Notre Dame, if that's the trade-off.
I'm going to kind of side here with Chris. You can't dispute the numbers that went against the SC defense, no matter who's playing. I couldn't give them a B at any level. I saw C- defensive ends and defensive line, C for linebackers, C for secondary grade. It wasn't because of lack of effort. It's just, they just can't do it. And I thought Alex Grinch did everything he possibly could do. There were some high points and there were some low points. So C for me. Now, give us your overall defensive grade, Mark, Kevin, Chris, myself. Mark, overall defensive grade.
Yeah, like, I'm just gonna stay consistent with it. Everything considered, A for effort, B for, productivity. I know the numbers don't support it, but you're going up against a really good offensive team on the road, missing some key players. I just got to balance the scales in my own grade book.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I go with the B minus. You can round it up, round it down. It's one of those wussy kind of grades, but it's not exactly a B, certainly not a C. They played better than that. And I'd like to know what the coaches think about the performance of the team. I think it's probably going to have a higher grading system than what we just went through.
Okay, Kevin, or excuse me, Chris, what grade?
I'm going to give the defense an overall C. By the way, I think we'll see a little bit more about Arizona the next 2 weeks. They're at Utah and at UCLA the next 2 weeks. I think they'll move the ball and they'll score some points, but I think we'll know after that whether or not all our talk about how Arizona's a great offense, how true that is. Let's wait a couple of weeks and revisit that.
All right, I'm going to give him a C. Now give me your overall grade and a brief comment on the Trojans special teams. Mark?
Yeah, C minus. That wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't good. Yeah, look, I'm not going to fault Dennis Lynch for the long missed field goal. That thing was rushed and helter-skelter. I don't even think they should have attempted it. Maybe, you see him warming up, nailing them without any rushing and, just being able to take his time and line it up. It kind of tells the coach, hey, he's got the lay, he can get it done. And you want to get behind your player and see it. But no, he also missed an easier one. I don't know, the kickoff coverage. I like when they kick it short. They cover it well. They should probably do that more often. The one time that Aiden Sleep Dalton got out there to punt, he was fortunate to get it off. I'm not sure what happened there, but he actually, used his skills to get that ball off. I think he actually directed his foot a particular way to make sure the defender couldn't get to the ball. So yeah, they regressed on the road this week.
Grade?
C minus.
Okay, Kev?
Yeah, I gave C minus, maybe slightly generous, but I'll go with that. It wasn't pretty, honestly. That was a regression big time and unfortunate. I did like the high point was the touchbacks. Okay, that's great. Low point was missing 2 field goals. Whether it's a long one or not, you got to think if you're going to line up your guy and tell him to kick the ball, you got to have an expectation that he's gonna make it. If you don't have that expectation, then there's really no reason to do that. Go punt the ball or quick kick, or maybe not quick kick. Do something else. Go for it. Throw a fade route. Do something other than that if you don't believe your guy has the ability to make that kick. So he missed it. And that was unfortunate. And those are the kinds of things that later on we got to get that corrected. We really do, and that's going to cost us a game, and we can't have that.
Chris, you believe it's going to cost us the game? Your overall thoughts on the special teams and a grade?
Well, I mean, special teams can always cost you a game. We know that. I don't think it's going to cost them the next 2. Look. Mark is right. The kickoff coverage has gotten better as the year has gone on, which is nice because early in the season, that kickoff team was questionable. They're making plays now. That's nice to see. I'm not gonna hold it against Lynch that he missed a 56-yarder. I will hold it against Lincoln Riley that we attempted a 56-yarder. I don't think anybody. I mean, maybe Lincoln Riley did. I certainly didn't expect him to make that kick. Did you guys? When he lined up for 56 yards, I thought that doesn't make any sense. I mean, yeah, it's 4th and 14, but all right, maybe we can quick kick. Maybe we can do something. But I guess the problem is that from Riley's perspective, from that position on the field, what are you going to do? But what I would have done is try to pit him inside the 15, and I'll hold Lincoln Riley responsible for the onside kick. I understand why he did it after the 15-yard penalty. I get it. I think it was probably a bad choice. Moreover, it was a lousy kick. I mean, it never did bounce. So special teams were not good. It didn't cost us this week. Will it at some point in the future? Maybe. Certainly, you're going to need all of those points against UCLA, and you're going to need all of them if you get into a conference title game against any of those teams. So we'll see what happens. But fortunately, it wasn't costly this week.
All right, I'm going to give him a C. I thought there were some good points, like was covered on kickoff returns. I thought, how do you judge a punter on one punt? And he barely got it off. So, okay, that was, what it was, just one punt. And look, you go 1 for 3. I get the long one. That's a good questionable call. But overall, I saw it as a C. All right, let's give a final overall team grade for the win at Arizona. No comment necessary. Mark, overall team grade?
Solid B, bordering B plus.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, solid B for sure.
Chris?
B minus.
And me, it was a B minus as well. Okay, and we're gonna have a little special grade since more and more people are commenting on it. I'm sure you'll all have something nice to say about this, a special grade that we're going to incorporate. Grading the officials, your choice for this grade. Mark, go ahead and give us a grade.
FU.
Okay, that means
Those are actually grades you could receive on your report card as a kid. If I think all of us are old enough to remember those.
yes, absolutely. And performance and attitude. Okay, so Mark goes with an FU. Kevin?
Look, this has been going on for a decade at least. The Pac-12 officiating is the joke of college NC2A football. It's just awful. It continues to be awful. And why disappoint now? So there you go. They're hideous.
It was embarrassing.
So Kevin, are you giving it an F?
Well, if there's something lower than an F, use it.
Okay, Christopher?
I'm going to give them an F. I can't stand these guys. And here's the thing. It used to be that I hated the Pac-12 officials because of the nuts and bolts of officiating, the holding calls, the pass interference calls, all that stuff, right? And they still suck at all that. And in fact, and it doesn't always go against us. I mean, that roughing the passer penalty that they called. I mean, a guy's jumping in the air because he wants to bat down the pass. When he lands, he bumps Caleb Williams, and that led to a touchdown for SC. That was a terrible call.
Yeah, it was a make-up call. Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
You tried to hold Caleb up too.
Yeah, it used to be that's what I was so upset about. Now what I'm upset about is they don't understand the most basic rules of the game. They don't understand when to start the clock. We saw it against Utah. They tried to run 10 seconds off the clock against Utah for reasons that I will never understand. Then they go out and they know they screwed it up. They knew they screwed it up at the time. Of course they did. The guy's still moving the football. He hasn't set it on the ground.
You know what?
And they ran 6 seconds.
I got to tell you, it would have been really cool if Dedich or whoever the heck was the center at the time just grabbed the ball and snapped it and just take the 15. I mean, at that point,
look, because there are some calls that are going against the other teams as well. I'm not yet ready to buy fully into the conspiracy theory, although it's becoming more plausible. What I do know is that they are completely inept. Every crew, every week is terrible at what they do. And I'm so sick of watching them mar these football games. I'm just disgusted by
Yeah.
So's the athletic director. When he's at the point where he's just retweeting all the stuff that we're tweeting during the game, you know, he's just.
This is where we need Pat Hayden. I always wondered when we were going to need Pat Hayden as AD. Now I know we need somebody who will rush on the field and actually confront these people.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm
Mike had
gonna give it an F, and that's because there is no lower grade than F. So with that, let's move on to the second quarter here. Panel, if you look into the future, how do you think the Pac-12 race for the championship ends up? Chris, we'll start off with you. How's this race gonna end up?
Well, I think USC UCLA is a toss-up game, and so because it's a toss-up game, and one where it's really going to be in a neutral site, because while it's at the Rose Bowl, UCLA fans haven't been filling the place. There are going to be a lot of SC fans there. So you essentially have semifinal brackets. You have USC UCLA. It could be anybody's game. Utah Oregon. Oregon has the advantage because they will have a real home field advantage against Autzen. And I don't know what the deal is with Cam Rising and if he's going to play. I haven't heard yet. So I think Oregon is likely to play the winner of USC UCLA is my guess. And I think again that's also a toss-up game. I think the top 4 teams in the conference are all very close. They're all pretty good offensively. They're all pretty questionable defensively. And I think any of the 4 can beat the others on any given Saturday.
Mark?
Yeah, Chris nailed it. You got a couple of semifinal things going on November 19th. Now, again, Utah might lose before then because they are starting to suffer from attrition. It's not just the quarterback. Tavion Thomas didn't even make the trip on their last game. The running back, and I'm not sure, I'm not clear what's going on there. So we'll see what happens with Utah before that big game. Oregon, they also have to play against Oregon State, who, you know, they jumped into the rankings, which makes that USC win on the road even better. So I believe that game is in Corvallis as well.
Correct.
It is.
In Corvallis.
They have Washington too, and Washington can score points. Oregon has 3 tough games left on their schedule.
Absolutely. You made that very clear on our last show. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. If USC's defense can stay, remember the beginning of the year, we just wanted it to be serviceable. They've been kind of doing that roller coaster thing. And right now they're on the downward trend, and it's because of attrition, because of injuries. If they can maintain serviceable and keep the offense and keep getting better as the season goes on with the backups, and the offense just maintains, they're going to be a hard team to stop. I see them in the conference championship game. Am I having a little bit of homerism? Of course, but you know what? You put pressure on DTR. We know that he can beat you with his legs. You need to be able to make him beat you with his arm. And when he's on the run, he's not a good quarterback throwing the ball.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think look, there's a lot of moving parts. It's a little early to make these kind of calls. I like our chances, I have to tell you. I really do. I like UCLA. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. That's just grammatically, I forgot to put the punctuation in there. UCLA still has to beat a quality USC football team. And I can't wait for that game. I don't even care what the records are. I have to tell you. So, and it's up to us to go win that game. And that's one of those. And Notre Dame will be similar too, by the way. I know Notre Dame's schedule their record looks spotty, and their performance has been up and down and so on. Well, look, you can make the same claim about us, I suppose, but I like how things are shaping up with respect to where we're going, what we're doing. The team is improving, which is, as I said earlier, is what I look for week in and week out. And I like what I see, and bring it on. Let's go.
I will say that it all gets down to November 19th, both at Oregon and at UCLA. If everything is all equal, They should be tremendous games. My question, of course, would be, is it easier for SC to beat UCLA than it is for Utah to beat Oregon? Because Oregon has that built-in advantage. So we're going to find out. It won't be long now, as they say.
Well, which is harder? Is it harder playing in front of 90,000 fans, which we anticipate the Rose Bowl being filled, or 25,000+ fans and a sound system in Corvallis?
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Well,
But
Chris brought up the crowd, and I think that will be a factor.
It
Well,
could
I
be.
mean, Oregon has a home field advantage that UCLA does not, and so Oregon getting Utah at home is a big deal. But yes, you're right. Look, Oregon State can beat Oregon, especially at home. They can. That's a good football team, and they're going to play well at home. It's a big rivalry game, and Oregon will be coming off of two enormous games: a rivalry game against Washington and a game against Utah. Playing your third big game in a row is not easy, which is something that we should remember if USC ends up in the conference championship game.
Good point.
Okay, we're going to skip over a second question I had because we kind of touched on this already. So I'm going to move to the last question of the second quarter. Where do you think USC should go if it doesn't go to the college football playoffs or the Rose Bowl? Where would you like to see them go, Chris?
I mean, I think a two-loss USC team probably ends up in the Cotton Bowl. They would be a pretty appealing choice for the Cotton Bowl, and that seems to be where the at-large teams end up these days. So that's probably what happens. If they lose two games, then you're probably looking at the Alamo Bowl or something like that. And I'm not excited about that.
No, I agree. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, look, Chris gets to stay home for a bowl game if it's in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl. That's cool. I haven't been to the Riverwalk before, so I guess for a selfish reason, I would look forward to going to San Antonio. I don't know if I want to go to Vegas again. It would be too close between the conference championship game and the Las Vegas Bowl.
Kevin?
Nothing else appeals to me, really.
Okay, Kev?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Mark on that one. And not a lot is appealing with respect to, postseason play other than a marquee game. Okay. And that's just whatever that looks like is fine. I think Chris makes a good point. Cotton Bowl will be fine. We just need a marquee game and then go out and beat somebody because we still are scratching our way out of the Helton pit.
I will go with the Cotton Bowl, having been there the last time. They do a great job of promoting the game. It's great for the media. My only hope would be that SC plays somebody that would be a nationally recognized team. But it is what it is. So we'll have to wait and see how it all turns out. Okay, let's go. Excuse me. Halftime. That was a good sneeze. Let's go to some questions here, and then we'll wrap this Tuesday up. From Scott from Palos Verdes. How it will go with how will it go? Wait a minute. How will it go with Cal? How will it go with Cal this Saturday? And what happens if it doesn't go well? Is that?
Well, I think that's the bulk of the second half of our show, isn't it?
Exactly.
So I'll give a very short answer. USC will win.
Okay. We will, by the way, give predictions on Thursday. Tuesday from Steve on Washington, from Washington, D.C. Where do you think the program is going now and into the balance of 2022, 23, and 2024? I will say this. I think the program is going up and up, and it depends on how the recruiting goes, and that will be kind of the answer to that question.
Well, it's the recruiting, it's the development, it's also how the coaching staff is developed as well, because there's some guys there that need some heads up as well, in my humble view. So, and by the way, in 4 years we could all be radioactive apparently, so it may not matter. I don't know. Gee whiz.
To the moon, Alice. I mean, this team is just, yeah.
All right, this is from Chicago in Illinois. How do you know what the officials are thinking about USC? I don't know if they're doing it subconsciously or consciously, but it stinks.
There's an underlying assumption in that question when he asks what the officials are thinking.
Right, exactly.
He's assuming something I'm not willing to assume.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of funkin' going on there. Jeez.
Yeah.
All right, from Florida in Miami, where are the backups that are behind the offensive line starters? I think we're seeing them, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, you saw Mason Murphy. He jumped in at right tackle, played flawlessly almost. He had one penalty called against him. We saw Gino Quinones earlier in the year. I don't know, is Cortland Ford a backup?
I would say he's a co-starter, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Look, these guys are playing football. The distinction between backup and non-backup or whatever is just give it up. Guys are playing. Get out there, play ball. They're enjoying it. I think maybe you guys might agree or disagree, but I'm seeing from afar guys that are enjoying playing the game, and that has been missing for years. And I really like seeing that because your play, your effort goes up, but importantly, look, that's what this is about. It's about winning. It's about championships. It's about all of that, but it's also about having some fun with it when you're out there and playing a good game and feeling good about it. So I like what I see. Got to tell you.
I think that what we're seeing is that there's more depth on the offensive line than we may have thought coming into the season. There's some guys that can play, and some of those guys will be coming back next year. I mean, you're going to be able to put. I don't know if you can put together 5 quality starters next year with the group that we have now, but you're going to get pretty close to that. So even before you talk about the transfer portal, which I'm sure they'll use, I think the offensive line is coming together, and I think we're seeing a good coach do a good job with that unit, and those guys are playing more physically than we've seen USC play in a very long time up front. It's fun to watch, actually.
Well, yeah, and some of that's on Lincoln Riley too, because he's running the football and with the tight end. So it's like this is no kidding power football. This is not the son of an O-line power football. Okay, this is real power football.
well, to your earlier point, Kevin, you were saying that they're having fun. You can hear it in the players' voices, in their words after the game when they're talking to the media. So if anybody watches those post-game press conferences, listen to the words and hear their voice inflection. When you hear Taj Washington say, he was asked, I know the question was about the offensive line, but he was asked, were you considering leaving the program before the season started with the infusion of so many new faces in the wide receiver room? And he was like, no, I love these guys. I love the competition. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So that's to support what you were saying, Kevin. That's the point. When they're having fun.
And that's going to make a big difference in recruiting too, because these kids can see that. They see that these guys really, really love the coaching staff. They love each other. They're having fun. They're going to want to be a part of that. I mean, Lincoln Riley is known as a great recruiter, and he will recruit well. But it's also easier to recruit when you have that going on than what you had the last 3, 4, 5 years at USC, where it's like a morgue when you walk into any of those facilities.
All right, well, we're going to end up with this last one here from this one's from Dallas. Maybe you guys know who it is. Who do you think who's going to be the quarterback at USC in the future going to 2024?
Huh?
I mean, look, Miller Moss is going to have a lot of experience in this system by then. And could Malachi Nelson beat him out? Of course he could. He's a talented kid, but I wouldn't assume that.
Yeah, let's just assume Miller Moss is the starter, and that maybe the kid from Mater Dei comes into that class. Who knows? That's 2 years away.
I think
that's a light year, man, in my world. I gotta tell you, but God bless him. line them up and let's just let the best quarterback play.
I think there's a player out there that I think deserves some consideration if you're going to look that far in the future. And Mark, you'll know this better than me, but I think it's DJ Langway from Texas.
There you go.
He's a player that I can really see that Lincoln Riley likes because of that Caleb Williams type of.
He was his first offer.
Yeah. So he's a guy that maybe not a lot of people know about, but he is a guy from Texas that you should keep an eye on and have an ear
Maybe
open.
he sent the question.
What's that now?
Maybe it was DJ Langway who sent the question.
Might have been. All right. A reminder again, if you have a question or comments for our panel, either go to the We Are SC message boards, click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle viewer or listener questions. Okay, that'll do it for Tuesday's first half edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Reminder that in the Thursday edition of the Huddle, we'll kick off the second half with a preview of the Cal game, give our Pac-12 predictions, and have a little surprise along the way. And so until Thursday, a big thank you again to our panelists, Marc Kulkin, Chris Arledge, and Kevin Bruce. And a special thank you to all of you for watching and listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. Hoping you're having a great week wherever you may be. Go Trojans. And until this Thursday, this is your moderator, Greg Katz, saying, fight on, everybody.